All right, welcome everybody. I see you're getting impatient out there. Look at all these comments already. People are yelling at us for not being on right now. Al Broderick, let's go. Don't keep a clown waiting. I mean, okay, fine. We get it. We'll keep the watches on time, and you'll notice here that Ken Weeb not here right now. Andrew Hustler Patterson stepping in. This is like big league. We're getting to the top of the charts here with this kind of stuff. How are you doing, Andy?
Well, I'm doing well. Nice win for the visitors tonight, and probably a lot of happy people viewing the Kenny and Renny post-game show. And it's always fun to come on with you guys. I would always do it. It is a little late, but that's just how much I love Kenny and Renny. That I'm here for you guys this late at night, and heck, it's a lot more fun to talk about a big win like that than maybe if it was reversed. So I picked a good night to join you and all the Jets fans in here in the chat.
Totally. You know what? I'm going to tell you something. We have to explain what's happening here, and you guys know that sports can be a rough business, right? If you're not getting the result, if you're not playing on the ice, sometimes you get taken out of the lineup. We saw that with some of the players with the Calgary Flames, and that's what you're seeing right now with Kenny Weeb. He's not getting it done, so we needed to pull him out of here. We needed to bring in. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
For the first period.
No, Kenny's right, and I think we told people in the pregame show, and maybe we caught up with you in the last of the show. Kenny's got to do some writing for sportsnet.ca. You'll want to go check that out because he's always got great stuff. But like we said, Hustler's stepping in here to give us a hand. And so let's just get right into it. Hustler, I want you to give me your take. What did you think was the story of the game tonight?
Well, the story of the game was Mark Scheifele, Nikolai Ehlers, and Kyle Connor. Connor Hellebuck was his usual brilliant self early on. And, he gave the Jets an opportunity to kind of stay in that game after the power play kick clicked early on. I'll give the penalty kill, actually, credit early on as well. But, man, I mean, once the Jets got, if you want to call it good fortune, if you want to call it the, on the right side of a close call, whatever, fourth line gets it done to get them right back in the game. And really, Sean, from that moment on, it was showtime for 27, 55, and 81. And the second period, I tweeted this out. Nikolai Ehlers put on a straight-up Harlem Globetrotter show in that period. It was phenomenal. And Paul Maurice has to be feeling pretty good about himself right now after that line switch up. Ken actually speculated that in typical Weeb fashion that this is something that could happen at some time. So he certainly wasn't calling it that it was happening tonight, but he did nail it. Little swap of the centers, and wow, was that line effective tonight?
Now, Hustler, I'm going to tell you something, and I've got the receipts to prove it because I got the text from Ken, but I was actually the one who floated that lineup tonight by switching those guys. Oh. And it's interesting because what I was wanting to see was I felt like there was like a little bit of a chemistry that existed between Wheeler and Dubois. It seemed like all those goals Dubois was scoring when he was up with Scheifele and with Wheeler just had this innate ability to find him at the time, or Dubois had this innate ability to go where Wheeler wanted him to go. We'll dig further into that, the 55, Connor and Ehlers and Scheifele, because, I mean, how can we not? They were absolutely phenomenal. But that one goal that we did see out of that Dubois line to start the third period, it's another one of those plays where Wheeler knows exactly where to go. Dubois knows exactly where to be. And I know it wasn't what we saw with that other line, but there's a chemistry there, I think, that exists between those two players. What are you saying?
Yeah, well, first off, the bar was set pretty high by the Scheifele line. I mean, to expect that from any other line, probably unreasonable. But there is, I think, some fun. There's some fun competition, I think, between that top six. Everyone's playing well enough that, they're just looking for, the top line minutes, the top line opportunities. And I think one of the great things about the way this team looks in the aftermath of the Laine trade is just how balanced they are. And that wasn't something that we said about the Winnipeg Jets in the past. So, but to your point about Dubois, I think that there's been some growing pains of Dubois getting used to his first trade and a new team and the quarantine and all that. But if you watch Pierre-Luc Dubois closely, he does so many brilliant things in both ends of the ice. And that was what the Jets were looking for. And, I think that the additional defensive chops that he brings are going to be huge come playoff time. But right now, especially in a game like that with a new line mate or back on a line with a player like Blake Wheeler, was nice to see them pop one in, and it was a heck of a shot too by Pierre-Luc Dubois. Didn't take long to welcome Big Save Dave back into the game.
I thought that was unfair. You and I talked about it quickly off air, but I thought that was a time when Daryl Sutter kind of outcoached himself. I mean, he makes a switch in the game, brings in the backup goaltender, and is that the first shot of the third period? I believe it is. I mean, anytime a goalie's getting scored on their first shot in the game, especially when everyone else has been playing and they're coming in cold, I think it's an unfair situation. That put the Flames right out of the game. I didn't think it was a smart move. But I mean, when you're that Flames team and you're kind of trying to figure out a way to make something work, I think that's when you make those decisions that look bad. But in the end, you're just trying to create some kind of magic. And that team just does not seem to be able to find that spark that it's needed this year.
Oh, they have a lot less than they're searching for some sort of magic. In fact, I think, Sean, let's face it, after the game number 1 of this series, they were searching for a miracle.
Yeah.
We talked a lot on Winnipeg Sports Talk heading into the week on, how this series, big opportunity for the Jets, but, almost last call for the Calgary Flames. And if the Flames weren't able to win game 1 and get on a bit of a streak, their season was basically done. And man, you really saw that in the second half of the game. I mean, once the Jets got up and they got that third goal, I mean, the life of the Calgary Flames was just sucked out of them. You could maybe make an argument back to the goal number 2 by the Winnipeg Jets that it was done. And this has been a story, about the Calgary Flames all season long, even prior to Jeff Ward being fired. A real lack of response. And, at times that was not what we would say about the Calgary Flames. They're a fractured team right now. And I went on, I know a lot of people were kind of focusing on what the Jets were going to say afterwards. I was far more interested in what we heard from the Calgary Flames after the game. And Matthew Tkachuk could not have had less time for the questions that were asked of him. Of course, he was asked about the play and, essentially took it on himself, essentially blamed himself for the second and fourth goals, but said that his team does not handle, I believe his quote was, "We do not handle adversity very well." No. And then Daryl Sutter was asked about it, and he said, yeah. And, guys like that are the guys that we really need more from. So Sutter, I was hoping for a full-fledged explosion. I was disappointed from the Flames head coach afterwards. But it was pretty clear that there's a resignation that their playoff hopes pretty much done after tonight. And I'll be fascinated to see what Brad Treliving does over the next couple of weeks before the trade deadline, because I think after this game, the Flames are into next season territory if they weren't there already.
I just thought one of the things that stood out to me in this series, especially with the Calgary Flames, was the inopportune times that they were taking penalties. It just seemed for a team that needs to be playing, right on that line, needs to have as sharp a focus as they possibly can to get into a position where they can win these games and not put themselves in a bad spot. Time and time again, they're taking these bad penalties at bad times, and it cost them in the first game. They got away with it in the second game. But the funny part about that is I'm sitting there thinking of all these bad penalties they're taking, but you brought up the Matthew Tkachuk play. And again, we talked a little bit about this before we got on air, but I thought that play was absolutely terrible on his part. So he's fighting for position with Scheifele. Scheifele's heading down ice. The back of his leg gets kind of clipped. And what does he choose to do? He chooses to fall backwards and look instantaneously at the refs and throw his arms up. What ref is going to look and give a call to a guy who's, before he even hits the ice, is over staring at the ref? The right play to do at that time is for him to grab, if he's going down, grab any piece of Mark Scheifele that he can and not allow him in. Yeah, maybe you take the penalty. Maybe it sucks because you feel like you got clipped from behind by Scheifele and it's Scheifele who should be getting the penalty. But have some awareness of the situation. The game, you're saying that's the goal that killed that team. I agree. And it's a killer because one of your leaders is absolutely fishing for calls rather than trying to stop the most dangerous play on the ice. To me, it is entirely emblematic of that Flames team that their focus is in the wrong spot. It's not on winning. It's not on the hard play. It's not on the right thing. It's on the easy, cheap shot that Lucic can take and punch a guy in the face rather than keep his cool. It's on Tkachuk trying to look for a call rather than fight his way and take a guy down. It's a team that this entire year has been making the wrong decisions and trying to do the wrong thing for the entire year. And the concerning thing is that no matter what coach they get in there, they can't seem to fix that problem.
Yeah, well, Daryl Sutter will claim that he can fix that problem and will fix that problem going forward. There's not enough time to fix it before the trade deadline. There's not enough time to fix it in a 56-game season. So, where do they go from here? It's interesting. As far as that play goes, I'm with you. I mean, Scheifele had a step on him. Obviously, he's a faster skater. And Tkachuk, given the battle that they had, I think made the choice that he was going to completely embellish whatever he was getting from Scheifele and see if he could draw a penalty. And listen, anyone in the NHL, the most honorable player in the NHL won't get that call, considering what actually happened on the play. So for Tkachuk to think he was going to be able to do it and then get after the ref afterwards, I mean, that was just basically a reaction. He was embarrassed. He talked about it afterwards and sort of owned it in some ways. Certainly didn't really feel good talking about it. But that is one of those things. I mean, when you look at the Calgary Flames right now, they've got a solid goaltender, although Markstrom has not been the same guy since he came back from injury. Whether he came back too soon, I'm sure they'll be talking about that in Southern Alberta. But I mean, the defense core, pretty good. They've got some guys that can play, and they've got a top six that has done it in the past. But I'll say this. I mean, the on-again, off-again nature of Calgary's top players has been their Achilles heel all season long. It was the big reason they were talking about it, why Jeff Ward got fired. And you've seen it in a bunch of the lifeless losses they've had to the Ottawa Senators. And you saw it in the second half of this game where they knew they were done. And frankly, they played like it.
I mean, I guess you don't need to think about it because Daryl Sutter is signed for 3 years, but it starts being a team with a lineup that if I'm a coach, do I want to go coach that team? Because if everyone is being asked to come in and try and fix the nature of a number of players who don't seem to have the proper compete at the right time, at some point you got to realize it's not the coaches and it's the players that are the issue. All right, let's get back to that line change. I thought Mark Scheifele looked entirely different than we've seen him for quite a while. I've got the good fortune of knowing some really good coaches who work here in Manitoba, and I get a lot of texts from them during the game while they give me breakdowns of what they think they're seeing on the ice. And one of them saying that just his speed entirely opened up with that line. What did you see from Mark Scheifele?
Yeah, listen, I thought Scheifele's one of those players that he is a little bit like a shark at times. He'll smell a bit of blood and then it is on. Now, listen, I thought Scheifele in a lot of ways was excellent and finished, but he was also I thought Nikolai Ehlers was the catalyst of that line. I mean, I thought Ehlers' second period was absolutely brilliant, and he was playing. There's when you see when certain athletes are feeling it. He was feeling it, and he was playing with a level of confidence that, man, if you could get out of him every single night, I can't even imagine what the results would be. He really, really did take over that game, I thought. And, certainly when a player like that is creating the way he was with line mates like Scheifele and Kyle Connor, there's going to be some results, and they got it going, and it didn't really stop until the final buzzer.
So let me ask the question in reverse then. What do you think about putting Mark Scheifele on that line, open things up for Nick Ehlers?
That's an excellent question, Sean. Listen, do I think that, Mark Scheifele changes if anything, the speed of Scheifele and his ability to finish. But the thing is, I could say a lot of those same things about Dubois. Scheifele maybe just has maybe a little extra offensive level. I would say the same thing about Dubois on the defensive side of the game. But man, when you think about Scheifele, adding him with Ehlers and Connor, the speed and just how devastating they can be on the rush is right up there with the most, dangerous lines in the league. And, and as I said, they don't need much. I joked to a friend in a text after their second goal. What do you think their Corsi is tonight, guys? Everyone loves to talk about Corsi, the shot attempts on both sides. It was like 33% at that time. They finished at 45. But, I mean, we're all talking with them taking over the game. And listen, I mean, anytime when you dig into those numbers on a game-by-game basis, you can really see some misleading information. I guess the one thing that it's difficult to account for is that, when players like that are playing with that level of confidence and mojo, not all chances are created equal. And whoo, did they make them pay tonight?
Yeah, as opportunistic as it gets, that team, again, something we talked about quickly, but I mean, to your point, some teams don't need as much opportunity to score goals, and that the Jets to me have been that team for a number of years. Boy, though, if they got to a place where they were creating more chances for themselves, they could be one of those teams that steamrolls teams night after night after night. Okay, this is exactly where my thoughts went to after this happened, after this line change happened. We've got Lowry, who Paul Maurice likes to match up against the big, heavy center from the other team. So if you're playing Edmonton, he's going to get the Draisaitl matchup. Then typically when the old line was going of Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele and whoever they had them with, that would go against the more skilled guys, so they get the McDavid type, and that should leave the third another line exposed, typically that Ehlers Connor line, to try and feast on another team's third line or fourth line or whatever matchup you can get. I'm very interested if we stay with these lines, and why would we go away from them at this stage the way things went, at least for the next game until things stop working. I'm wondering which of those three lines is the line that you are trying to open up and get against the weaker competition.
Oh, we're going to find out quickly, because the Jets, after being on the road for 7, are going to be back at home against the Toronto Maple Leafs and are going to be having the last change. And to be honest, I still think it's the Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers line, because, and I think Billick maybe made a good point earlier tonight. I mean, when you look at these lines, the concerns are for that, and whatever, we'll just call them the Scheifele line and the Dubois line. For the new Scheifele line, you worry whether they're going to be able to possess the puck enough, and they'll have the puck in the other team's end enough to do what they do well. On the other side of things, swapping Dubois and Scheifele, you wonder whether maybe there's enough offensive chemistry and finish on that line. And I mean, I think in the first period, it was quite astute. Part of the reason why we were joking about that Corsi number is, there was a few shifts in the first period where they spent a lot of time running around in their own end chasing the puck.
Right.
We could see that again against the Maple Leafs. I mean, if they do get out there against Matthews or Marner, I mean, this isn't a team that shuts you down in your own end and then takes it the other way. They'd like to do that more. That has been an issue so far, since. So, I mean, I really do think it'll be a work in progress, and I think these next couple games will be a real great test. But on home ice, I think they'll be more than happy on having Stastny and Dubois and Wheeler go up against some top competition, get the Lowry line in an advantageous matchup. And while it might mean a few less minutes, I think you'll put them in the best opportunity to succeed. But at the same time, Paul Maurice plays a lot for Mark Scheifele, and I think we saw the numbers tonight, that line getting a little bit more. So, having not seen Maurice with the last change, I'm fascinated to see what we'll get on Wednesday night. But if you ask me, who would you want matched up? I mean, let's get those 3 top offensive players in an advantageous matchup to make the next opponent pay like they did the Calgary Flames tonight.
Hearing you break that down, I had what I think is a pretty interesting thought when it comes to this. And you're right, Ehlers, Scheifele, Connor, they can kind of get lost in their own zone. It can be problematic, right? But let's be honest, these are 3 high-end guys who came into this league to do one thing, and that's score goals. These guys didn't come in to defend, and Ken, I'll give him credit, is always the guy who says, not every player is Bergeron. Some guys are built to be offensive, and that's how it goes. If you have a line like this that, like you'd said, can get caught in their own end, but boy, when they go down the other way, aren't they dangerous? Doesn't this kind of hit home the idea that we need to, and you know what, Kenny's here. I'm going to finish this question and I'll open it up to both of you. Kenny, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I am excellent, gentlemen. Good to see you all.
Thanks for joining us. I think you probably took your time with your piece, but whatever, whatever it takes. But
hey, hang on a second here. I don't want to get Wally pipped. I already brought it up with Huss in the afternoon, and he told me that I better hurry up or I was going to lose my job permanently when it comes to this program.
We already talked about it. There's a lot of people suggesting, you haven't been bringing it in the comments, and you got it. So you're fighting for your job tonight, Ken.
Late from the morning skate. Benched for the first period. That's basically how it works.
You're only as good as your last game, Kenny. I'm going to open this up to you. Huss was bringing up some interesting insight on Ehlers, Scheifele, and Connor. And potentially, the Corsi numbers that they had weren't that great. They were looking a little rough in their own end. But I wonder, to your point that you've made on a number of times, some players are offensive players, and you don't need them to be the most offensive players out there. You want to let guys run. So seeing a line like that and what they're capable of offensively, but where they fall short defensively, doesn't this just hit home the idea that the Jets need to swing for the fences and bring in a defenseman who can kind of shorten up these troublesome shifts they have in their own end and get that line, single-handedly get that line down the ice into the spot where you need them to succeed?
Yeah, I mean, the puck movers are always critical. I mean, the offensive juggernaut kind of lines, they always need a puck mover. I mean, for the Oilers, no better example than what Tyson Barrie has meant to their offensive players in terms of exiting. Obviously the less time, the best defense for some guys is a good offense. I didn't mind that line particularly. I know they're not going to be confused with being a defensive juggernaut, but I really liked what I saw from that grouping. And Sean, like you and I had talked about, and Huss and I talked about in the afternoon, when you have Scheifele playing with those two guys with that blazing speed on the wings, I think even Paul Maurice touched on it. It kind of forces Scheifele to expand the pace. And again, that's not a knock on Wheeler and Stastny, but Wheeler and Stastny are a little bit more methodical when it comes to the way they're thinking the game. Again, Blake Wheeler's been a very good skater for a long time and has had elite speed, but now you have two incredible burners on the side of you, and it's kind of forced Scheifele into a little bit more of that giddy-up mode. I really love the puck movement with those guys. And the other thing for me, Sean, the ability for Mark Scheifele to separate. Obviously, it was a dive for Matthew Tkachuk, but if you get involved in that hand fighting, you win that battle and get to the net. I mean, again, Tkachuk cannot risk the dive in that situation, but good job by Scheifele to get himself through, fighting through the check, and then opening up for the one-timer. But man, oh man, I'm sure you guys talked about it, but how about that Ehlers play? I was talking to him earlier.
Harlem Globetrotters. Globetrotter stuff.
That was a great tweet, Huss, I have to say. I spoke with Nikolai Ehlers earlier this week for a feature I'm working on, and he talked about his soccer background. And it just is classic how...
Wait, Nate Thompson or Ehlers?
But I mean, here's the thing. For a guy to say after the game, I don't think I've ever even tried that in a game, to have the confidence required to go stick to skate to stick to blow around Michael Stone, and then have the eyes in the back of your head to find Scheifele in the slot is absolutely exceptional. What an incredible play by Ehlers. And then he puts the exclamation point down with the slap pass to Andrew Kopp for that fourth goal. Man, just an incredible game for Ehlers in what has been just a dynamic season for him.
Hey guys, sorry to cut in on this, but Huss, you got to let the audience know your hat's making far too much of a kerfuffle.
Oh, the lid.
Let people know where to get one of those.
Shout out to our friends down at the Peg Authentic on Corden. Yeah, great this spot. Look them up online at the Peg Authentic, or pop down. They've got a little spot right next to my home 7-Eleven. So you can go grab yourself a big bite, maybe some chips, and then you can get a lid like this or whatever. Yeah, great people. Locally owned, making the stuff here. So, for people wondering, the Peg Authentic.
So we're not going to chase you out of here. I know that you're going to have to go at some point, so you just let us know when you do. But I'm going to ask you this because you brought it up and got me thinking about it with the way that line plays defensively. But again, if the team is looking to shore things up defensively, how much does getting a big name player allow Ehlers, Scheifele, and Connor to free them up to do what they do best?
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, if all of a sudden, if a top pairing defenseman showed up in Winnipeg, I mean, I think that makes everybody, a little bit better defensively. And there are some players in some lines that could probably benefit from it more than others, and I think they'd be at the top of the list. But, again, it goes back to, and I mean, Ken, you were still writing. I mean, I was sort of joking, talking about the Corsi numbers of this, because after the second goal, for that line, I'm like, I wonder what the numbers are saying right now. And sure enough, they were like 33% at the time. And, they really did take over that second half of the game. They finished up at about 45 or 46%, I believe. But the bottom line is that, they will go through stretches where sometimes they are a little bit pinned in their own end. I mean, they're never going to be confused for the Bergeron line. However, when they get a little bit of space and when they get some speed, and I think it shows even more with Scheifele playing with those two, they are as lethal, or can be as lethal, as almost any line in the National Hockey League. And the Calgary Flames found out the hard way tonight, and the first time that group had been put together this season by the coach.
The Flames done, guys?
Yes. Yeah. They are put a fork in them. The party is over. And I kind of thought that in reality after Friday's game. But, I mean, going in, if the Flames didn't get probably 6 points realistically, but at least 5, just to, as far as catching Montreal, I don't know. I can't possibly see a scenario. I mean, they essentially need to go on about an 11 or 12 game winning streak. Do you think that team is going to do that? I sure as hell don't.
Yeah, here's the thing for me. They do have 5 head-to-head matchups with Montreal, Huss, but I'm with you. Here's the thing. They need to hang on.
They need to win all 5 to get
Exactly. So this is the thing from tonight. The calling card of the Winnipeg Jets is building on this, dipping into this reservoir of resilience. And guess what? The calling card of the Calgary Flames this season is being consistently inconsistent. And that was on display tonight as well. So both teams kind of held true to form, and that is a recipe for disaster when it comes to the Flames' playoff chances.
Did you see Sutter? Did you hear Sutter after the game, Ken?
No, I didn't. Even though I was on call for both, but I focused in on the Jets. I can't imagine it was very heartwarming.
No, it wasn't. It was like a morgue. But Matthew Tkachuk, didn't really have a lot of time for the questions, but essentially sort of owned the second and fourth goals and said that the team has a hard time dealing with adversity. That was put to Daryl Sutter, and he essentially said, yeah, well, you can look at that guy as well as a couple other ones are the ones that we need to be dealing with it better. So like I was saying to Sean earlier, the next couple of weeks in Calgary will be fascinating leading into the deadline, because if you're Brad Treleving, we can say, maybe they could run the table and win all 5 in regulation against the Montreal Canadiens. I don't think there's anyone at the top of that organization that can really think that after watching this team play both pre and post the Sutter change. So it will be fascinating, because I don't think they ever imagined that they'd be in this position with so much time left in the season.
Well, that's what I mean. Are they a seller? Are we looking at them as being a major seller? Are they the team that suddenly starts flooding the market and opens things up? Because I think that looks absolutely horrible for Treliving in that market. This is a team that he built as a one last shot to try and make this work. It didn't work. It's falling apart. I agree entirely. I think they're gone. Stick a fork in them. They're done. But how is Treliving going to survive this? He has to turn around and now sell the idea that either we're going to hold on, or we're going to try and do this again next year, or do we start moving guys and get real assets?
Yeah, the culture change is coming, Sean. It's just a matter of if they're going to be changing the Monahan-Gaudreau culture right now, or if they're going to wait until the off season. And that's a big decision coming up for both Brad Treliving and ownership. It's going to be super interesting. I think that if Chris Tanev doesn't come back from the injury today, maybe it's a full-on sell mode, but I think there's got to be some changes made. I don't know what exactly Brad Treliving is going to do. Obviously, if he had a deal that was appealing to him when it comes to Gaudreau and Monahan, he would have made it. Here's the problem, guys. Those guys don't produce at 5-on-5, and everyone around the NHL is watching and knows it. So how are you going to get maximum assets for players who are underperforming? It's an impossible job.
Yeah, if you're Treliving, though, here's the thing. I think Sutter's going to have a big part of this. And the fact that they've had these results between the Ottawa series and the Winnipeg series, I think it pushes them to realizing, honestly, the predicament earlier than anyone could have expected. So if that's the case, over the next week or so, there's going to be some discussions, and I think they'll be figuring out, okay, this is the guy we really do want to keep. All these guys, if this makes the team better, you can move them. And then I think Treliving's in a situation that he will be in the summer, but they may come to the realization that, I'll tell you what, if we do get an offer and maybe the trade deadline, puts them in an advantageous situation. Maybe it gives those assets, an extra year of playoffs and whatnot. Maybe they can get something more for them. And if he thinks that, I think there's a potential that maybe one of those guys goes down. But the bottom line is I think the writing's on the wall that there's going to be significant change with this team. And the big question for Brad Treleving is, does he do something before the deadline in the summer? And I guess now some people in Calgary will be wondering whether he's even the guy that should be making those calls going forward.
Well, that's one of the big questions. But to the point you made before, Ken, about those guys, their value being low and moving them when their value is low, this conversation has been going on for a long time. At some point, don't they just have to cut bait and figure out something's better than nothing when it comes to moving Johnny Gaudreau or moving Sean Monahan? How long are you going to let this team's inability to have a heart and soul and leave your supposed heart and soul guys in place?
Sure, Sean, but here's the problem. Monahan has been a consistent 30-goal scorer. Look at what Jets fans are like when it comes to, talking about Mark Scheifele's defensive play. Calgary would basically kill to have Mark Scheifele as their top line center. So to me, it just reinforces how difficult it is to have a top line center for some teams. And like we were talking about before in the pregame, the Jets have 2 number 1 centers today, and they were fully on display. Huss, how much time did Sean spend telling you that he was the one who actually planted the seed in my head in terms of Dubois going with Ehlers?
It was the funny thing because I did make a point of saying it was the classic Ken Wiebe non-take. Because basically you said, well, this is something that could happen at some time. So yes, you could probably say a lot of those things, but the funny thing was then it happens tonight. And then I brought this up, and yes, he did mention that in fact did come from him. Apparently there's receipts. All I know is that it was a great call. But it's like, instead of saying, I think this guy is hitting a home run tonight, you're saying at some point in the future, he could hit a homer. So
I should have doubled down. Huss, you're right. I should have doubled down. I should have doubled down and really stuck to my guns there. This is my problem. When I'm not on the road and not at the morning skate, the crystal ball is a little cloudier than normal when you're not around the team as much as you're used to. But I do regret not doubling down on that thought. There's no doubt about that.
I'll tell you, Kenny, when Huss was giving you for credit for it, this was my face. I was like this. I was just entirely like, are you kidding me?
I gave you credit while giving you a shot at the same time. Let's not say it was just a couple big bouquets here.
And well deserved.
The goal, this is my goal, is to get yours and my, Kenny, our thoughts kind of all mixed around in the same bowl so that everyone's just like, hey, Kenny and Renny had a good idea because you come up with far more good ideas than I do. So I want 50-50 credit on the whole. So I probably shouldn't stick to these. I probably shouldn't be waving the flag.
Hey, let me, before I got to run here, I'm interested in your guys' take, and Waiters just threw it up in the chat. What did you guys think about the Dubois hit on Tanev, other than it being absolutely devastating? I mean,
it was perfectly clean. Perfectly clean. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with Calgary's response to it either. I mean, I know they take a penalty on that play, and I know that Huss, you and I talked about them taking really bad penalties, and at times where they shouldn't have taken penalties, they didn't. I mean, I think that's a penalty that a team that is trying to stick together and be cohesive have to take, especially because it's Chris Tanev, who we've talked about in this space a number of times, is absolutely phenomenal. You don't let that guy get rocked, and I'm okay with, guys. I know the idea people get upset about it's a clean hit, just leave it alone. If a guy gets absolutely blown up and he's one of your best players, I'm old school like that. You got to go do something. So I thought the play was great. I thought the penalty was great. I thought that's exactly how hockey's supposed to be executed on both sides of the ice at that point.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Huss. I think it's very much a clean hit, but the problem was that when the puck kind of squirted between Tanev's legs, it put him in an awfully awkward position. Yeah. And then by the time Dubois arrived, it just caused this ferocious force where first his right shoulder hit and then his head hit the end boards. He's actually very lucky his head didn't hit the dasher. The fact that he kind of leaned forward is kind of probably what saved him from a concussion. So it was absolutely a clean hit, just an unfortunate result for Tanev. But again, fortunately, he came back into the game, because if the Flames lose Tanev, I mean, man, that's a critical blow. He's been their best defenseman, and not only that, he has elevated the play of Noah Hannafin this year. And here's the other part, guys. the fact that it's Hanifin coming to the aid of Chris Tanev is massive for them, because Hanifin's not exactly known for his physicality.
Hustler, just so you know, this crowd's not going to let you go easy. They got you hooked in here. You may not get out here. And I'll tell you this, if they convince you to stay for a little while, it's never a little while, because Kenny will keep you going too. This crowd is very much Kenny's crowd. They get their hooks in you, and you're not going anywhere. So you better buckle up.
Huss is not afraid of a late night. Huss is not afraid of a late night. And let me tell you, he doesn't need any coffee to stay online.
No, that's true. Although I am enjoying a Diet Pepsi. If there's a sponsor I need, it's the DP.
Let's touch on Helly quickly here, just because I thought
my favorite topic.
Yeah, a couple things. It is. I'll say this, over the years and the way that this team has hung Connor Hellebuck out to dry at times with the shots from the high danger spots, the one thing Connor Hellebuck always tells me when I go and ask him to be like, seriously, you must feel a little bit left out to dry. The one thing he tells me is like, watch how often I get scored on backdoor tap-ins. He said it rarely ever happens because we defend that. We funnel everything to the front. So if I'm going to face shots, I'm going to face them head on, and we feel I've got a better chance of stopping those shots if I'm facing them head on. Well, I was wondering how tonight was going to work out, because you get the backdoor tap-in, rarely happens. But I mean, he bounces back in one of those ways and just keeps that team alive early. 5 minutes left in the first period, you're starting to wonder if it's just not going to be the Jets' night, and then it ends up being a blowout. And I just think how different things could have been if Connor Hellebuck wasn't Connor Hellebuck in the first period.
We could probably say that, for 20 games this season. And you know what? I mean, listen, you can't take a player like that for granted. But at the same time, Connor Hellebuck, I think, both with his teammates and with 99% of Jets fans, has instilled a whole different level of confidence that anyone that watched this team prior to him getting here would think was, from a fantasy reality, story. Listen, the guy is so solid. We've just kind of become to expect it. And much like when you're talking about, Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, you expect greatness from those guys night in and night out. I know it's a different position, but, Hellebuck, I was just looking, his last 4 games, guys, 29 of 30, 25 of 27, 38 of 39, 22 of 22. The guy's locked in right now. He is in a groove, and I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got for the Leafs on Wednesday night.
Yeah, another classic Hellebuck quote when he drops the statute of limitations in the Lucic disallowed goal commentary. But again, back to reinforcing Hustler's point. I'm trying to pitch a perfect game no matter what. If one beats me, it doesn't change my game plan. I want to show that I'm a rock back there, and any time that I get beat, I'm going to force them to make the perfect shot, or at least try to, and I'm going to show my team that I'm not phased. That absolutely screams confidence. He's yelling into the microphone and cranking it as high as it can go, and guess what? His team already knows that. He doesn't even have to tell them. They know that because they've seen it, and it's been exceptional. Huss, the way that he's responded, we talked about it on the show. 8 consecutive starts of 3 or more goals allowed, and he didn't let in any bad goals during that stretch. But you know what? He was sick and tired of hearing about it, so he's gone out and allowed 5 in his last 4 goals and pitched his first shutout of the year, and he should have had back-to-back shutouts. And he was ticked off that he lost it.
Did you see his reaction after the game? Did you see how stoked he was after that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was just fired right up. And here's something that I thought, and I mean, it's easy to have fun on a night where you win in a walk. But I'll say this, Mark Scheifele this season, the way that we've seen him react after wins, the way that he's interacted in the media, the way that, to your point, Connor Hellebuck has reacted in the media, these guys are having a hell of a time. And I just take a look at the passion that they have for each other just strikes me as being a team that is really, really meshed, really, really come together. And, we talk time and time again. It's always, you were asking Paul Maurice about it in the post game, about this team and their ability to bounce back. I mean, when guys care about each other, it's easy to get behind guys and push and try and get to that next level. And I wonder how much of that game had to do potentially with trying to get Lauren Brossois back after that last game and show that maybe we didn't have a ton of pushback in that third period when you didn't have the best game, but we're going to come back and make sure that, Lauren doesn't feel that he started something difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I don't see the same thing in Scheifele as you, at least with the media. I mean, like even today, I mean, if you just looked at and listened to his answers, you would have no idea that the team won 5-1. On the ice, it's a little bit different. But Hellebuck's in a whole nother stratosphere. He's the best interview in the league as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's always interesting. It's always honest. Scheifele just knows how to play the game a little bit more as far as with the media. Not trying to serve up too much, but I will agree with your assertion, Sean, when we're talking about what we're seeing with his teammates on the ice in plays. I mean, absolutely engaged, and it's hard to compare anyone to Hellebuck because Hellebuck is just such a special player and interview. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, I think Mark Scheifele's in a way better place than he was, say, 24 months ago when this team was, going into that playoffs and kind of on that second half season slide. And I'll tell you what, this change tonight from Coach Paul Maurice, I think, is going to be something. Hey, listen, we know he's got a great relationship with the Wheeler. I love some Paul Stastny, but I think you get a couple periods like that with new line mates, and they'll be absolutely very much ready to go.
I'm with you, Huss. Hang on one second. Okay, all right.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm just going to make a quick point, and then you can take it on. I do see your point. I mean, he's definitely not, Nick Ehlers. He's not blowing us away with joyous quotes or anything like that. But you made the really good point. A couple of years ago, he looked absolutely morose in post-game interviews, even when they did win. So, I mean, I guess I don't think Mark Scheifele is ever going to be the guy who comes out, waves the banner and is having a heck of a time. But I do think he strikes me as a guy who's a lot more settled and a lot more I think he's happier. I think his interactions with the media are that much better. He's got a little running joke that he has with Gregor Buer, who is the PR guy every time that Gregor lets him go. He says, "Thanks, Mark." And he always gives a real over the top, "Thanks, Gregor." You know what I mean? He's got his little things. Yeah, he's not the most emotive guy, but I do think, to your point, what we used to see from him, it is a far different situation now. It's not the most emotive, but I think is about as good as we see from Mark Scheifele. Sorry, Ken.
He's in a much better headspace, guys. There's no doubt about that. It is his joy level, to coin the Claude Noel phrase, is much higher at the rink. We know he's always loved the game, but a couple big things for me. Getting knocked out of that series 3 shifts into it after not playing from March until August and then having to wait until January. I think that not that his appreciation of the game ever really waned, but his demeanor certainly has since then. And also, let's not forget, Mark went through one of the toughest things of his life, losing one of his biggest mentors this year in Dale Hawerchuk. Yeah. That has got to change someone's life perspective, however way you want to spin it. He's spoken a little bit about it, but never really went too deep. But we all know how much it meant to him. And I think that there was a conversation that transpired before Dale passed away that I think really meant a lot to Mark. And I think it has been part of why he's come back with this refreshing attitude.
Guys, speaking of Scheifele, the one thing that just stuck out to me, and I'm not sure if you caught it, but at the intermission of the broadcast, they did part of the 10th anniversary, a look back to the first ever game in October of 2011. And a lot of people forget Scheifele played in that game. I mean, he had led the NHL in preseason scoring, made the club out of camp, played in that game, and played, I don't know, was it 5 or 6 games before going back to junior? 7. And, they showed him that night, him talking about it, and you fast forward 10 years to now. And, I love to have some fun with how every single Jet coach or management always talks about so-and-so is a man. They're men. Everyone's a man or when they do it. Scheifele is now a man compared to what he was before. And you can see, just the changes in him over the course of the last 10 years. And, some of the aw shucks, wide-eyed kid, that kid is long, long gone right now. And, from a Jets perspective, I think, hey, from a fan's perspective, would you like him to be a little more emotive and have a little bit more fun so fans can get into it? Yeah, sure. But the thing I take out of this right now is they come to work every night expecting to have those performances and expecting to win. And you know what? You go out and, light up the Calgary Flames in a big game like they did tonight. You know what? That's what we came here to do. That's what we're paid for. So I'll tell you what, you win a few series in the playoffs, I think we'll see him maybe more excited. But bottom line is he's getting the job done right now, and that line was smoking tonight.
Huss, you talked about it being 10 years. It's hard to believe.
Crazy.
Not only that the team's been back that long, but that Scheifele's been that involved for that long. And it goes back to thinking something like, what a phenomenal job by Kevin Cheveldayoff to get that player locked up in this organization for 10 years, never mind another 3 more years after this. And I had a conversation with an agent behind the scenes at some point this year. And apparently at one point he'd gone to Kevin Cheveldayoff and just congratulated him on the years past 27 or past 26 or whatever that he was able to lock him down for. That agents around the league, if an agent looked at Kevin Cheveldayoff and that came up, each agent would give him the old knowing head nod, yeah, well done, great job, that was something. I want to get to this, Kenny, because this is what I was laughing about before here. But Jeff Hamilton asked a question about making that change, and he asked, what took so long? And as soon as he asked it, I started laughing. Everybody,
I know why. Yeah, I know why you're laughing. Yeah, Hustler knows as well. So here's the thing: to those folks in our commentary section that are not aware of how these Zoom calls have been working here, it must be about a month ago when the 3-on-3 overtime revolution was starting. I stuck my neck out there with the first call. And mentioned or asked Paul Maurice. I was clearly joking, but the problem with Zoom is that I did not know how angry Paul Maurice was when he walked into the room. If we had been face to face, I probably would have led with a different question, but I still thought it was pretty evident that I was kidding. But I did mention, does he think about, why didn't he go to it a little bit earlier? And he gave a snarky answer, and I appreciated it very much. But here's the thing.
He said, really, Ken? You're going to start by introducing it?
Yeah. And then he said, yeah, I regret I can't sleep at night after all the times that I wish I had done it. So here's the thing. That question that Jeff asked totally brought Paul Maurice back to that moment where I asked the 3-on-3 overtime question, but instead of snapping back, he bit probably right through his tongue, took a deep breath.
You heard it.
And then you could hear his tongue, you could hear the bite of the tongue, and then he took a deep breath, and then he gave an incredible answer. You can say whatever you want. You're right. He didn't like the question, but then he took a deep breath and gave an incredibly insightful answer. And we also know that by the time Monday rolled around, I came right back at Paul with the exact same question, and he gave a great answer because he knew where I was coming from. Sometimes in our business, sometimes the questions do ruffle some feathers, but sometimes those questions bring the best answers. So I also have no problem with people, having people have fun at my expense. No problem whatsoever. And I can assure you that Jeff Hamilton, whether he's still on here or not, doesn't regret asking the question because he got a great answer.
I honestly think we should band together as a union, and someone from the Winnipeg media in every press conference should ask Paul Maurice a "what took so long" question, because I think that we'd be getting great answer after great answer.
Hang on. And one more thing, for the context that why I asked the question, it wasn't to poke fun at the fact that he waited. I just wondered what was the impetus. That coaches are thinking about these things before they implement them. So I wondered how long it actually took him to convince himself that he should do it. I wasn't saying, why the heck didn't you do it sooner? I just wondered what the kind of hallelujah moment was where he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go with 3 forwards and I'm going to commit to it and I'm going to double down, and that's what I'm going to do. Win, lose, or draw.
Well, it's easier to keep on doubling down when you keep on winning every time. And I'll say that. But you know what? That answer, and you know what? Forgive me if this was a different question that was posed to the coach, because I was going back and forth. I was so excited to see Mount Sutter erupt. I was kind of more paying attention to the Flames. But if I'm not mistaken, Ken, he did sort of talk about the fact that he didn't give anything away, like, they're in a nice position and they're thinking playoffs, but he'd say there's sort of a limited amount of time left, and Dubois is still a new player, and there still is the desire to see him play with some of the other guys in that top six, and still working to see what is the best formation of that. And we saw a pretty good one tonight.
And there's a strategy element to this, guys, as well, that Paul Maurice touched on. When a team is at the end of a long road trip and you kind of feel like that gas tank level is approaching E and Kramer wants to drive another 10 miles, you make a change. The exact quote was, sometimes a change is as important as a rest. Yes. So what happens is you put all of the players on high alert, and then you don't sort of, yes, it's true, you don't necessarily know what those players, it's not going to necessarily come naturally, but it actually gets your brain a little bit more engaged with the process of learning new line mates. You have an idea, Sean, like you said, Dubois had some chemistry with Ehlers kind of built in, and that Scheifele obviously has played with Connor, and he's played with Ehlers. He just hadn't played with them together. So I think you saw all players kind of jump. I think you even saw a little bit, you saw some extra zip in the step of Paul Stastny at times tonight as well. So, and what that also does is that it puts the old antenna up for the third and fourth lines, who know that they need to have a big night as well, because there could be some chemistry issues for the top six. So guess what? Then you better probably kick in one or two as well. Literally, in this case, one was kicked in. But I know a lot of people were wondering. I thought that it was pretty well explained by Kevin Sawyer. I think because he had to extend before the puck arrived, it wasn't a true kicking motion. I mean, otherwise, there's really no explanation for it. You know what I mean? He didn't kick it when it arrived. He definitely extended to get there.
I would say it is definitely a kicking motion. However, he had sort of finished the kick, if you will, by the time the puck hit him.
Sure.
The guys, I can't remember whether it was Dennis or Kevin on the broadcast.
It was Kevin.
It was Kevin. It made
Kevin said his leg was already fully extended.
Yeah,
before the puck got there.
and I'm pretty sure that was essentially what they thought of. Now, listen, if it hits him 6 inches earlier while the skate's still going forward, even if the angle isn't directly in, I don't think it counts. But I thought it was a pretty good observation by Kevin, and that's the one reason why I think that it was a good goal, because, as I said, and by the way, I'm not even sure that if it actually was a kicking motion that those goals shouldn't count. But under the rule book right now, they you can't do that. But
hold on? Can I just say how stupid that rule is? Like, how stupid is it that a player can't kick a puck in, but he could stab his foot out? And I had a bunch of people on Twitter saying to me, it's about safety and it's keeping guys safe. And and I said, yeah, stabbing your foot out off the ice is far more safer than a guy kicking at the puck. Like, it's dumb. And like that, to me, they got to figure that rule out. Like, if you want offense to be able to be generated off of people's skates, but you don't want any danger to it, then put a rule that you can do whatever you want with your skate as long as it stays on the ice. If you don't want that, then if you don't want that offense, then say to the refs that anytime you see a player redirect or move his skates in an obvious manner to redirect a puck in the net, that's not allowed. But figure it out, because this kind of stuff is stupid. Because one, it's stupid that you can't kick a puck in, but you can do that and score a goal. But two, it's stupid if you can't. I don't know. It drives me nuts.
I'm here for that argument. To be honest with you, if it was up to me, I'd say, yeah, no problem, you can kick it in. And Ken, if I'm not mistaken, that has been brought up before at the GM's meetings. I mean, this is something that's been talked about, and I don't think there's heavy support on either side. The one thing you do hear back, and maybe less so in the NHL, but in hockey as a whole, as it is somewhat of a player safety issue, although I'm not sure whether I personally buy it.
I just don't think that doing that is no safer. Doing what Nate Thompson did is no safer than kicking at the puck. Same deal.
Well, I think that the concern, and again, it's probably overly cautious, but you don't want to have a Renault, like you don't want to have any bicycle kick situations when it comes to hockey. And I don't think they're going to get to that point. But I think when they bring up safety, that's what, the impetus of, or the crux of the argument is. You don't want guys following through so that and then they, fall and they're behind, totally, and the skate ends up at neck level. I mean, but again, that has nothing to do with what happened tonight or, similar circumstances.
A situation where you have to decide whether or not that play was a kick or not is ridiculous. I can't say it any other way.
While we're on this topic, how about this one here? And to me, so let's go back to Saturday night. I thought it was incredibly obvious that Engvall actually knocked it in with his glove, and then it went off Smith's mask and in, but it sounds like the one angle, it looked like he swung at it but then missed it. But I don't think for a second you should be allowed to score with your glove. No thanks. No.
Yeah.
No Nelson Emerson goals for me. Come on, let's get real here, people.
I don't know. One of the great goals in Jets history.
It was a great goal.
Great reference. I was at that game. I will never forget how mad the Hawks were after the mystery goal. Look it up on YouTube, folks. Nelson Emerson hand goal. That's the Diego Maradona of the National Hockey League.
The hand of God, yeah. Hey, so let's switch gears here. I find this an interesting and fascinating question because, Kenny, we've used this space to kind of talk about Blake Wheeler's game this year and him not necessarily falling off that often, but he's not going to be that 92-point guy anymore. And I don't know if I would maybe agree with the idea of him being, a defensive juggernaut in any way, but do you think maybe just the idea of Blake Wheeler being okay with receding a little bit and being the focal point of this team and allowing other players to fill that space? Do you think that this is his Steve Yzerman stage of his career?
To me, it comes down to sacrifice. I think if that's what you're asking me, Sean, I think, yes, this is a little bit more of an Yzerman scenario. I think we saw it fully on display last year when he was the one who said to Paul Maurice, if you need me to play center now that Brian Little's out, you can count on me. So that was one example of it. The second example we talked about earlier, Blake Wheeler's willingness to accept moving into a down-low net front role where more touches are now going to Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. That is part of a sacrifice. Blake Wheeler's been saying it for years. Even in those 91-point years, he doesn't care about the numbers as long as the team is winning. And that's a fact. That's true. So in that regard, he is embracing it. I mean, I think that Blake has made some sacrifices on the defensive side, maybe giving up some of the offense. But I mean, I do think that in terms of the sacrifice element and the leadership element, he's definitely put the team first. And I think it would be silly to ignore the fact that part of the Jets' reason for building this resilience is based on leadership. We've heard it countless times from Paul Maurice. We even heard from Trevor Lewis, who Trevor Lewis knows a thing or two about winning 2 Stanley Cups and knows what good leadership looks like. So when newcomers come into the fold and are mentioning it without really being asked directly about it, I think that tells you a lot about the leadership group of the Winnipeg Jets and the young core that is also growing into that leadership group as well.
Hey, they've spent 10 years building a culture from the top down of this organization, not just the hockey team. And, I think in a lot of ways we're looking at, this sort of, especially with Wheeler at the stage he's at, but maybe most importantly, Scheifele being where he's at right now, 10 years into this odyssey as a pro. I think they've sort of been building up to this point. And, if you can continue to have results and be that way, you are building in, I think, a lot of young players that are coming into a group that if they do sort of buy in and want to be a part of it, it certainly helps them career-wise going forward. And we're seeing that year after year with a lot of young guys that have come through the ranks with the Winnipeg Jets, whether it be with the Moose or just through their development program.
So let's stay on Wheeler and because so many people, I saw a lot of complaints when his deal was signed for the amount it was signed for the length of his contract. And I don't think anyone expected that Blake Wheeler's game was going to be as equally good in year 5 of that deal as it was in year 1 of that deal. But what does Blake Wheeler's game look like over the next couple of years as it runs the course of this contract? What does it look like, or what does it have to look like to remain a game that helps this team Where does he get used in the lineup to remain being a player that is valuable to this team, despite the fact that we can fully expect that he's going to regress with age?
Like, are you asking this now or in 3 years? Because I think that's going to change, right? I mean,
that's exactly what I'm saying. What does he need to evolve into as he goes? Because I feel like we're partway through that evolution as it is right now.
I mean, listen, I think that, if you can get what Wheeler's delivering right now for the Winnipeg Jets for this season and next season, I mean, I think you still have a real good, legitimate chance, to be a contender in this division, in the Central Division next season. Do I think Blake Wheeler's going to be a top 6 forward till the final day of that contract? Probably not. But Ken, and we've talked about this before, and this kind of goes back to your point. There is a level of buy-in from a player. And, some people will complain about the amount of money in year 5. Guess what, folks? That's the way it works. You do what Wheeler's done for this organization over so long, under many years where his production would say that he was underpaid. Yeah, you're probably going to get taken care of at the end, and you might get another year on the end of the contract. Bottom line is, right now, Blake Wheeler's still a very effective player, a big part of this hockey club. And, I think from Paul Maurice's standpoint, you keep on putting him out, and I don't think the end of that is anytime soon, out in the top 6. However, I will say this, the way the lines look tonight with Scheifele playing with Connor and Ehlers, I think could very well be a line that gets more of the big offensive opportunities in the future, and I don't think anyone should be surprised with that, including Blake Wheeler himself.
Yeah, Huss, you hit the nail on the head, and we've talked about this a lot. I mean, for those people saying that Blake Wheeler's overpaid and will be overpaid at the end of the deal, I got news for you. This is a guy who was underpaid for a long time. Look at the production he was providing on those bridge deals.
Listen, every UFA, you talk to any guy that is a UFA coming off a season like Blake Wheeler had, and I'll show you a guy that in the last year of whatever deal he signs, he's probably getting paid the way he was when he signed the deal. Guys,
right.
That's just how it works.
Yeah. I'm just saying that he had delivered for a long, long time. So everyone who's saying, "Oh, he's overpaid now," well, yeah, there was a top up involved based on the level he was playing at. But again, reinforcing what Huss is saying, here's a couple things about Blake Wheeler. He's incredibly smart. He's one of the best passers in the National Hockey League. He's smart, and even if he does get moved to a checking line at some point, he can be effective. He's going to be able to get points on the power play, whether it's the first or the second unit, because of his passing ability and his ability and willingness to go to the front of the net, providing screens, getting tips, all of those things. But if at some point you move Blake Wheeler on a line with Adam Lowry or David Gustafsson, he could still contribute because he's smart enough. And the other part, he's still a great skater. He may not be at the upper echelon elite level he was at for a long time when he was taking defensemen wide and blowing by them with regularity, but he's still a good enough skater. He's not going to have that same fall off a cliff drop off because of those qualities.
Kenny, I wanted to get your thoughts because we talked about that. It's one of the reasons why I was interested in seeing Wheeler with Dubois. How did you think those two played off each other?
Sorry, say again?
Dubois and Wheeler, how did you think those two played off each other tonight?
Yeah, I thought there were some good reads in there for sure. I think that it was one of those things where, too, I think there were a couple times where maybe it was just a little bit off, but I also saw that potential that you kind of brought to my attention, to be perfectly honest. So I think there's great potential there, and I think that Wheeler it's twofold for me. When you put Dubois with two really elite level passers like Stastny and Wheeler, Dubois will adopt that same shooter's mentality that Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers have adopted. So when we talked about before the game, because he's been deferring to the shooters so much, I think now that he's playing with two passers, Dubois is going to have more shooting opportunities. And again, lo and behold, when Blake at the Lake was asking me, when is he going to score a goal? And I told him to be patient. Well, Dubois also showed up and delivered the mail on the goal-scoring front as well, and I think it's just scratching the surface for there as well. Sorry, you caught me off guard because I was looking at the comment that said Hustler is an underpaid UFA, and I couldn't agree more.
That's my job, is to try and take Kenny off his game. It doesn't happen often, but I love it when it happens. Guys.
Oh, and hang on, one more thing. Sorry. Someone was asking about the rumor that Wheeler was injured. It's not a rumor. Blake was injured. It didn't matter if he denied it or not. When I asked him
he never denied it. He never denied it.
That's
He
true.
said, if I'm in the lineup,
He just didn't draw attention to it.
I'm
Huss.
100%.
But again, we also know the answer he gave me after the 3-day break when he kind of snickered and said, yeah, I feel a little better. Exactly. So we know he was hurt and he played through it. There's no rumor. There's no debate. It was all in the delivery. You could tell. If you've been watching Blake Wheeler for 10 years, you knew exactly what was up, and he was hurt and he played through it.
Guys, we're over an hour here, and Huss told me he was going to check out very shortly after you showed up here. What you're learning, Huss, is it's like
it's guilted in by you guys and the chat. That being said, it was a lot of fun. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a whirlpool that sucks you right down every time, and Ken is the guy who keeps swirling his finger around it to make it go faster and faster.
I saw somebody say we could go 2 hours today, and I feel like I'm just getting started here.
Well, for sure, Sean can ask you
started.
2 more questions.
Exactly.
It'll be perfect. I do have to run, though. I got to give a shout out to everyone here. We're seeing a lot of familiar folks that are hanging with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk every day, so appreciate all of you popping in, supporting Kenny and Renny, and we'll see you tomorrow at 1. And I know what people were wondering what's on the show tomorrow. Hamilton will be on. We'll ask him about his question to Coach Paul Maurice, the game tonight. Probably get some takes on what's up with the CFL right now. And I've been waiting. And Ken, I know you're fired up with this. Baseball season's here. We got opening day in a couple days. So Keegan Matson's going to come by. We'll get ready for Jay's season.
Hustler, you will not be surprised by this one bit, but you know that most of the games have not been televised. I am the person watching the feed from Dunedin that shows the center field camera and the home plate camera. And after the ball is hit, you have no idea where it's gone until you see if a guy is standing at first or second base with no commentary. So that's how excited I am for opening day. It's going to be absolutely dynamite.
Now, well, listen, just to everyone in the chat who is shaming me because I'm leaving at 1:15 a.m. Let me just tell you, normally I'd hang here all night, but I've got 2 meetings, one very important one tomorrow morning. I got to do the lock shop, and I got to get ready for the show at 1. So I will say this. You guys want me to come back again sometime? Be happy to do it. We can go longer. But Kenny's in here. As I said, you got another half hour. That's 2 questions from Reynolds to Weeb, and we'll take care of everyone else. So
thanks for joining us, Huss. That was tremendous, man. Thanks.
Boys,
really appreciate
pleasure
it.
is all mine. Keep up the great work, and thanks for popping on, Ken. And we'll do this again with you on our side of things very soon, Sean.
Excellent job, Huss. Thanks for joining us, bud.
Shout out to all the late night folks in the chat. Have a great one, guys.
Excellent. Kenny, take a look at this. If the Jets win the cup, this will be an all-nighter. I'll commit to that. If the Jets win the cup, you and I will get on here and you want to do it all night, I'll do that. We'll
be working for quite some time, but we would definitely wrap that evening up with a Kenny and Renny post-game extravaganza. And who knows who will stop by. If we go all night, by the time that happens, maybe, someone's stopping by in the morning.
Ken, you know what? We didn't get to dive into it quick, and I know people are still here, so
Sure.
we might as well I'll give a couple questions that we asked before Huss got here, but I wanted to get your breakdown of the Ehlers, Scheifele, Connor line. I'd asked Paul Maurice about it. He touched on it a bit, but to me, it seems interesting the kind of what it brought out in Scheifele's game. What did you think it brought out in Scheifele's game?
Yeah, fantastic. And here's the other part. Mark Scheifele got into a stretch where, again, I think that he was deferring a little bit too much as well, Sean, at 5-on-5 especially. He had only had 2 goals in 16 games. He was still getting some opportunities, but I thought that his pace was better today, and I really thought that there was a great mesh there. We know that Mark Scheifele loves to play with Kyle Connor. We know that he's enjoyed playing with Nikolai Ehlers at times, and those two have played well together also. I think it pushed all of them, and I think that this version of Nikolai Ehlers is so fascinating when it comes to Scheifele, and we saw it again. Ehlers had that cut to the middle kind of stop and go where he pushes everybody back, and then all of a sudden now you have Scheifele and Connor to each side. So if Ehlers isn't going to shoot himself, somebody's going to be open. I really liked what I saw from that line. Again, we know that there's sometimes are going to be some defensive challenges, let's say, but here's the other part. Those guys get the puck in their hands. They're not going to be spending very much time in the defensive zone. I really thought they were explosive in terms of their speed, and I thought they got better as the game rolled on, to be perfectly honest. And again, I said it before, that play where he goes stick to skate to stick, wide slot goal. Honestly, this is one of the nicest goals of the entire NHL season.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And it's not because we follow the Jets. This is one of the most dynamic entries and plays that you will see this season. I mean, there's no arguing that. There really isn't.
You know what? We got to go, Ken, and we got to go because I kind of killed it. We lost 40 viewers because I basically started the good night, and Huss is going. I kind of felt like I needed to give Huss a
lost 40 viewers. We still have 188. I mean,
I know, but well, hey, 40 is what I don't know. I'm not going to get into the math of it, but poor Huss.
Hang on, one quick one. Do you think they'll stick with these lines, and how do you think that will impact? We got the Leafs coming up. I mean, we should quickly dive into this. Yeah,
let's do that because I asked Huss about it. I didn't necessarily share too many of my thoughts, but that's exactly what I was thinking when that happened. Is usually Lowry, he's the guy who takes on the big, heavy guy, and then other than that, it's Scheifele's line that goes up against the more skilled line, and then it tries to open things up for that second line. I'm fascinated by where this goes now because I think that if we like Dubois for his defensive game, and if that's the suggestion for Paul Maurice, that he's got really good defensive instincts, and that's the first thing that he thinks, that to me is the line that you want matched up against one of the other two teams' top lines. And Lowry, exactly, right? And Lowry is going to go against Tavares would be my expectation. And I was thinking to myself, it came to me halfway through the game, like, what is this line going to look like consistently going up against the third line on any other team? I mean, we've talked about this, and again, I feel like I've been you got the drums that you beat. I've been beating that drum, and I remember I was calling in at Sportsnet, and I was saying, let's set up these arguments with me from guys from Toronto, and let's film them. And I'm going to say the Winnipeg Jets are the deepest team in Canada. And I remember when I first made the suggestion, a lot of the people in Toronto were scoffing at me. They could not believe I was making the suggestion. But this team, if they're able to free up that line against different third lines, I don't know how they don't feast. Again, I go back to the point about if you're able to bring in a really top-end defenseman, a top one or two defenseman to play behind that line and kill all the troubles that they have in their zone and get them moving out quicker, this team is dangerous. They are quite dangerous. In fact, I think I'm going to go buy a case of Red Bull for the Game 7 all-night show we do if they win the Stanley Cup, just to be safe. Sorry,
I lost that comment about the merch. We got somebody offering to get the T-shirt supplies starting to print here. I didn't want to just bring
wife Kayla. That's my cousin's
there you
wife,
go.
Kayla.
There you go.
Awesome, and that's an awesome offer. And I'll get on the phone. I think he just texted me here. Yeah, send your logo. Kayla will make you T-shirts. So we should. I'll send. I'll even, because they've been asking for it. Kenny, you missed the headband comments, but I'll even send the headband in, and I'll get the Kenny and Renny logo right there, and I'll wear it like Mr. Miyagi. It'll be beautiful.
I have a hilarious story that I'm going to share. It's going to be very funny for people from Altona that went to Parkside School, Sean. And when it comes to headbands, when I was in grade 7, our phys ed teacher Carol Peters took away my Motley Crue Theater of Pain headband, and I have not been the same since.
Kenny, you were a badass, and she stole that from you. Oh man! Oh.
I don't know what I did for that, but it was heartbreaking, and I never did get it back. It was really it's something I'm sure every time I think of it, it breaks my heart.
A little bit more you dies on the inside. One thing, if you get to hang out with Kenny, and I've never said this about you, Kenny, before, I love this about you, is we'll be sitting around and we'll be talking, and we'll be talking about whatever, and then all of a sudden Kenny will like pull a song lyric out of nowhere and just like very like assuredly just say it. He won't sing it, he'll say it, and it'll fit into it. And I love that stuff, right? Because
oh my God.
There. Oh, it's great. It's great.
Poor Kirk Penton. Kirk Penton used to sit beside me all the time, but whether it was at football or hockey, and I was always doing that, and he would just break out, like I just do it like it's nothing's happening, and he goes full over fronting laughing, and I'm like, what? And he's like, you're doing it again.
It's just involuntarily. It's like you're sitting there, and all of a sudden you're like, hell's bells. Satan's coming for you. It's just like out of the blue, and you're like, what's happening here? But it's just that old rocker that refuses to die. It's that little kid voice that she stole from you that just keeps coming out of you at all times. It's great. And you're right, Kenny is metal. You know what one of my favorite things was, Ken, and I never told you this either, but when the Tragically Hip were playing that final concert and it was on CBC, I was watching at home. We got together with friends. It was like a viewing event, right? Like it's one of those things that I remember where I was when I saw that. And you were flooding Twitter with just it's been I remember this one specifically. I remember when they finished and you just wrote, "It's been a pleasure doing business with you." And I was like, great job, Kenny. I loved it. I loved it. It was good stuff.
What a show. And I was so privileged to see the last show in Winnipeg too. Just absolutely incredible. And we have a friend, Mike O'Neill, that was at that last show in Kingston. And man, it was just an incredible night to see the way the band kind of just that emotion and the caring for one another. Just something that I think, again, during a pandemic, such a great reminder of how important it is to tell people that you care about how much you care about them.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. One song that I never liked that much by the Hip was Scared.
Okay.
And they played that, and like it entirely changed the way that I saw that song. I mean, it came out when I was in like grade 12 in high school, and I remember thinking that the Hip, they're slipping, right? You know, you're a kid, you want to be, hey, it's the hot takes, right? You're a kid, you love the hot takes. I thought they were slipping. I couldn't have been more wrong. All the stuff they came out with after that, just absolutely phenomenal. There was something I wanted to end on here. Let's end on this. Going in to play the Leafs, how do you think they're positioned to play against the Toronto Maple Leafs right now?
Again, if we thought that the last series was measuring stick worthy, man, how great is this? You got the Leafs coming out of their break. There are some questions surrounding the goaltending. I mean, Jack Campbell's played great when he's played, and he's been healthy, held out today. 2 consecutive overtime games. You know that the Oilers were going to pour everything that they had into this game against the Leafs. We know the Jets are disappointed by the way the Oilers series went, even though it seems like it's ages ago. They're going to want to play well. They know they kind of left that impression with that tidy defensive effort in the last game, but they also know that the Leafs are kind of refreshed now again as well. So I think it's just going to be a dynamite series. I mean, I don't think we're going to see a 6-5 game, but I do think we're going back to the high-event hockey that was always so prevalent when these two teams get together. And I'm with you. I cannot wait to see Matthews and Pierre-Luc Dubois go head-to-head if that's the matchup they choose. Yeah. And as you mentioned, I mean, the Leafs' third line has been excellent this year, but Scheifele against a third line and potentially a third D pairing, man, oh man, can you imagine a third D pairing try to keep up with Ehlers, Scheifele, and Connor? Man, oh man, I think this is just going to be an absolutely fabulous series. And here's the other thing, Sean. 6 more games between the Jets and Leafs. It looks like a 3-horse race right now. Yeah. But man, oh man, there's a potential to actually go even. But if one of those teams can get any kind of advantage, it could be the difference separating between first and third, quite frankly.
Do we know how many games the Oilers have left against the Leafs? They've got 3
they're done.
against
That's
the Jets,
9. No,
right?
they're done. They're done. 6-1-2. The Leafs went in that head-to-head. Their 9 games are over. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the Jets, again, it's in 20 games to go. I just wrote, it's in the Jets' hands where they end up. But where they end up, a big part of that will depend on how they play against the Leafs, and they're going to want to be great against them.
You know what, Kenny? You know what I think that means? I think my prediction that the Oilers win the division in the regular season, maybe. I think it's looking pretty good because I do honestly think if you take a look down the stretch, I think the Jets and the Leafs are going to take a lot of pieces out of each other. So, hey, I wanted to do this one last time. I want to set you up for this. I know I called it your Moses moment, your Gandalf moments. Regardless, I love them when you put your foot down, you stamp it out. I want you to stamp out videos of Reddit here, who's been great and always shows up for this. Man. Absolutely no clue who the Tragically Hip are. What is happening here? What is this?
Okay, we already know you have the ability to go on YouTube Come on, like do a little bit of research before you come back next time. Videos of Reddit. We love what you're bringing to the table, but come on. If you don't get this sorted out, we're gonna send you a double XL T-shirt, and it's not gonna have the Kenny and Renny logo on it.
I love the come on moments. Everybody, absolutely phenomenal. So much fun tonight. Again, want to thank Andrew Hustler. Everyone get out and watch Winnipeg Sports Talk. Kenny was on it today. You can go back and you can check that out on YouTube as well. Go click subscribe to them. And while you're at it, if you're watching here right now and you haven't clicked the subscribe button, make sure you do so. It just means we get to connect with you more. And as you can tell, we have so much fun doing it. Really appreciate everybody showing up. Ken will be on Instagram 2 days from now for that big Leafs matchup. I know everyone's excited about it, so come join us on Instagram before the game. We'll break down what we can. And you know what,
awesome.
Ken, I never even touched on it. Kenny won tonight. He's closing the gap on the series. I was up 3-1. Kenny guessed a 3-1 victory for the Winnipeg Jets. He had one score right for Calgary, and then he had the score differential as well. I called a 4-3 victory for the Jets. So Kenny with the big victory tonight. I got to make sure I point it out because I sure pat myself hard on the back when I get it right. So 3-2 that series. Keep watching. Everyone come in, check us out on Instagram. And of course, we'll do this after the game. And it won't be so late, although I think you guys are just going to ask us to go till 1:35 in the morning, even if we do start an hour earlier, which is ridiculous from all of you. But thank you so much for tuning in. We love spending time with you. See you next time.